In episode 2, you find out what happened to Billy. After he saw Becca, he was dropped off in Fort Wayne, Indiana in a strip mall in front of a chain restaurant. And he goes in because he wants to write down everything he remembers from her place. But as he's doing so, he looks up on the television and it says he's wanted for the murder of Madeline Stillwell, so he needs to get out of there. And after Frenchie called, he showed up at the Cash for Gold place. And while Frenchie and Mother's Milk are thrilled to see him, Huey is not. He can't believe they're just ready to forgive Billy after what he did, leaving them for dead. But like it or not, he's here and he's here to help. He's going to go meet with a contact that he thinks that can help them find the soup terrorist. So as he goes off to meet that contact, his wife is dealing with an issue because Homelander is still at her house and he won't really leave. He's having a catch with his son and he can't figure out why his son isn't using his powers. And that's because Becca hasn't really told him he has powers. She feels like it's best if he lives as normal of a life as possible. But all Becca can focus on is why Homelander won't go away. So later that day, she drops Ryan off at piano lessons and tells him that she's going to go have coffee with somebody, but she races to the entrance, or it might even be the exit, of a compound that is heavily fortified. She gets out of the car and starts screaming at the guard to open the door. The guy tells her to get back in the car, but then she demands to talk to Dr. Park. And eventually Dr. Park ends up getting on the phone, and she yells at him saying, "I was told I would never have to see him again. He would never know about me or Ryan. That was the deal." And Dr. Park lets her know that Homelander was pretty pissed off this information was kept from him. And corporate has made the decision not to antagonize him any further. And unfortunately, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. He tells her to keep calm and they figure eventually he'll get bored and go away. But Becca, who is crying at this point, says, "You don't know that." And as she's on the phone with Dr. Park, she's watching Homelander in her house because it's under surveillance. So she picks up Ryan from music class, and that night, Homelander gives him a cell phone, which is his first cell phone, but he says, "I don't really have anyone to call." And that's because he's lived such a sheltered life. He doesn't have friends, he really only knows his mother and a few other people, and he's definitely not living a normal life. Homelander then tells him how he didn't have a dad, and in fact, he didn't have a mom. And sometimes it's hard feeling that superior to everybody else on the planet, but gods shouldn't feel that isolation. And then he looks Ryan dead in the eye and says, "You and me, we're gods, and we can do anything we want." And that is a pretty amazing feeling. Ryan then tries to go to bed, and as Homelander's leaving, he says, "All right, I love you. All right, Ryan, now you say it." And Ryan says it, but it's awkward as hell, and it really is nothing more than the words, because he barely knows this guy. As Homelander closes the door, Becca tells him, "You have to leave." But Homelander ignores that statement, saying, "What do you think's going to happen when Ryan finds out that he's been lied to his entire life? That you've basically been keeping him in this nice-looking prison? You think he's going to forgive you, or you think he's going to hate you? You were right. I'm not going anywhere. So feel free to tell Dr. Park to go fuck himself." And then he just heads downstairs to make Jiffy Pop. Now back with the rest of the Seven, they're busy doing a press junket, although it's really just the girls. Starlight, Queen Maeve, and Stormfront. Because this is the first time that there are 3 women in the Seven, and it's a big deal. They're starting this new marketing campaign, Girls Get It Done, and they have a very busy day. But as Ashley is going over the itinerary, Queen Maeve gets a phone call because she's still listed as Elena's contact, and Elena has suffered a burst appendix. So Maeve says, "I gotta go, I have a family emergency." Even though Ashley is begging her to stay, Maeve takes off. And when Maeve gets to the hospital, Elena isn't exactly thrilled to see her. She kind of pushes her to leave, saying, "I'm sure you've got busier things to do," but Queen Maeve isn't going anywhere, saying, "I'm going to wait for the doctor." And as they continue to talk, they get more and more comfortable with each other, and they kind of get back into their old habits. And eventually, as they wait for the doctor, Elena tells her that, "I'm going to let you take me out to dinner." But when Queen Maeve doesn't say anything, Elena goes, "Why did you even bother coming if nothing's changed?" And Queen Maeve tells her that it really has nothing to do with her. It has to do with Homelander. Because if Homelander ever finds out about her, it's putting her life in danger. And if Elena ever found out what Homelander has forced her to do, she'll hate her even more. And this is blowing Elena's mind, that all this time she was actually being protected by Queen Maeve. It wasn't like she was embarrassed by her. Now back with the press junket, it's now just Starlight and Stormfront. And they're being asked a bunch of questions by a bunch of different media members, but they're pretty much all the same questions, and they're getting tired of it. And one such question is, do you think women make better superheroes? To which Stormfront finally gets sick of it and says, "What does it matter if you have a vagina or a dick? Chicks and dicks are in it together." And then her phone starts buzzing in her purse, and she is getting death stares from Ashley. But she looks at Ashley and says, "Sorry, we don't have any pockets. You want to talk about a real issue? Let's get a girl some pockets." And Starlight is loving the honesty that is coming out of Stormfront, because it's just so refreshing. When they get back on track, though, one of the interviewers asks Starlight about the A-Train. And the story that they're going with is that the A-Train is on a secret mission. And Starlight is saying how she prays for him every day, and the world's so lucky to have a superhero like him. But then they surprise her because the A-Train is right behind her. And this is the first time that she is seeing the A-Train since he's woken up from his coma, where they tried to revive him. So while she tries to play it off like she's happy to see him, she is worried. And after that part of the press junket, she goes and talks to the A-Train, and it starts off pretty awkward. Hey, how you feeling? I prayed for you every day. But then they get to the crux of the issue, what he remembers. And she tells him, just to let you know, everyone thought it was a really good idea that you called me for backup. But he responds with, well, does everyone think it was a good idea that you let your traitor fucking boyfriend get away? Or did you not tell them that? And Annie nervously asks, well, who did you tell? But he just walks off. She then finds Stormfront, who's making a video denouncing her action figure, saying don't buy it. And Starlight tells her, you know, I really like everything you're saying about Vought, but Stormfront thinks that she's a spy, asking, are you wearing a wire or something? And Starlight says, no, I'm not wearing a wire. But Stormfront thinks she's a sellout, saying that she's the most Vought of Vought. And she used to be a fan, but she sold out. And Annie doesn't really have time to explain herself because Gecko's shown up with the Compound V. And Annie tells him, I can't just take this here. I have no pockets, and I'm at a press junket. But Gecko says, you wanted the Compound V, here it is. And if you bother me again about it, I'm going to make sure everyone knows that you're the one who has it. So she starts to put it in her boot, but then the A-Train catches her doing so. She's able to sneak it into the purse of Stormfront, and when the A-Train pats her down, he doesn't find it. They're all then called away to do more press for the press junket, and when the day wraps up, Starlight walks up to Stormfront, needing an excuse to talk to her to try to get the Compound V back, and she tells her, hey, by the way, you don't know me, and maybe I want to say everything about Vought that you're saying. But even then, she's very hesitant to say anything bad about Vought, and Stormfront can't understand why, saying you're literally bulletproof. I mean, what are they going to do to you? Drop the mask every once in a while. It feels good. And Starlight didn't just get that great advice, she also was able to get the Compound V back. She heads to her room and is texting Huey saying, hey, I got it. I'm freaking out. Call me back. But then all of a sudden, the A-Train runs in, asks who she's texting, but also grabs the Compound V. And Starlight is nervously making an excuse, trying to get him not to open up the pouch, but he does so anyway, finding the Compound V. She tries to tell him, I can explain that, but he doesn't want to hear it. And as he starts to leave, he tells her, I just want you to think about me when you're getting the skin peeled off your face. But then Starlight remembers the advice that Stormfront gave him, and she says, you're not going to do shit, because you killed your girlfriend. That's what you told Huey, right? That you killed Popclaw? He nervously tells her you can't prove that, but she says, well, I saw the autopsy report from Vought, and the needles went into her arm so fast that it actually shattered the bone. Now, Vought, they're more than happy to cover this up, but what about Sports Illustrated? I'm sure they'd be interested in the story. He says, well, if you do that, I'm going to take you down with me. And she looks at him and says, go ahead. I don't give a fuck. And as he looks in her eyes, he can tell she's being serious. She then takes back the Compound V, and he just walks off like a dog with his tail between his legs. So it was a busy day for everybody involved in the Seven, and it was also a busy day for Billy Butcher, who went to Raynor's funeral service not just to pay his respects, but also to get in contact with Grace. And it takes a lot of convincing, but Grace eventually gives him the address for the people that smuggled the soup terrorist into the country. And if they catch the soup terrorist, she's agreed to wipe all their records clean, they can go home. So they head to the address, and it's a party supply store. And they slowly start making their way to the front of the store, and as they're doing so, Kimiko sees a guy in a back office who she recognizes, and she literally tears his head off. And at first, Frenchie is surprised, but then he realizes why she did it. He works for the Shining Light militia, who kidnapped her and forced her to become a soup. She then takes off in the store and finds the soup terrorist, but instead of taking him out, she gives him a hug, because it's her brother. That's what she was trying to tell Frenchie the entire time. And Huey and Frenchie are watching this go down, realizing why she's hugging him, and Frenchie's kind of kicking himself for not realizing what she was trying to say sooner. And while they're totally cool with letting her have her moment, Billy is not. And Billy crouches down and has the soup terrorist in his sights, and as he gets ready to shoot him, Huey knocks him out of the way. But it draws attention to the group, and the soup terrorist throws pretty much everything at the store at them, and then runs off with Kimiko. When Frenchie, Mother's Milk, and Billy are dusting themselves off, Billy goes after Huey, wanting to kick his ass. But Huey says, we couldn't just let you do that. I mean, what, they're going to throw him in a black site and she's never going to see him again? Billy then tries to get the group going again, saying, all right, let's go get him. But this time they side with Huey. And it's the surprise of just about everybody there, but Mother's Milk says, Kimiko is one of us, so you got to find another way. And that's when Billy comes clean. He tells him how he saw Becca. And it wasn't bullshit this time. He was brought there, he saw her kid who looked just like Homelander, and then he was dropped off in a parking lot. And Grace told him that if he gets the soup terrorist, then Grace will find out where Becca is. That's the deal he made, and he needs to protect her because Vought has her stored away somewhere, and he needs their help to do so. And while he doesn't like asking for help, he's doing it anyway, so they go off and try to find the soup terrorist. And the soup terrorist is currently sitting on a swing with Kimiko, and they're both apologizing for not being there for one another. But the more and more they talk, the more Kimiko realizes that he's been radicalized by the Shining Light. After Homelander slaughtered their village, he's literally come to America to try to ruin it. And Kimiko is the exact opposite, seeing the Shining Light for who they truly are. But this disagreement forces the two to get into a fight where Kimiko eventually wins it by choking her brother out. At this point, Billy's group has found him, ties him up, and throws him in the back of the van with Kimiko. And as Huey is closing the door, he gets punched by Billy, who says, "If you ever get in the way of me and my missus again, I'll fucking kill you." And instead of standing up for himself, Huey just gets in the van, pissed off. Oh, and then finally there's an update on the Deep. He's taken that book that Carol gave him and he's filled it out. But Carol's having a tough time making sense of it all, trying to get to the core issue of what makes the Deep tick. But Eagle the Archer says not to worry, and he gives him this herbal tea that has him tripping out. He locks him in a bedroom, and then all of a sudden, the Deep's gills start talking to him. And his gills are really just trying to help him figure out why he is the way he is. Thank you for watching this recap. If you do not see the next one up in the corner right there on the end screen, don't worry, it'll be up shortly. Please consider following the channel. That'd be cool. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you don't, there's a thumbs down button for a reason.